NFL graphics. And oh, there it is. Okay. So welcome, guys. Champ, I'll bring you in first. Champ, how are you doing tonight?
The Wizards are so annoying and the Commanders are so annoying. Why are my team so annoying?
I
I
know.
don't get it. I'm in a bad mood, and
I don't blame you. I
I
have
don't
this.
have alcohol. I don't have alcohol. I don't have cigars. I'm in a bad mood. I can't. I just can't.
I the Wizards 2 games in a row. They're up, relatively late in the game and lose them. This one they were up big. I left the scoreboard up the whole game because I even called it at the beginning of the podcast. I said
they blew the Charlotte.
Yeah, they blew the Charlotte game too.
And the Nets.
So it's 3 blown games in a row. If you're hearing the voice of Tim, we have Tim live in the man cave as well. But just brutal stuff. And then the Commanders also blow it at the end, and the Ravens blow it at the end. So it's all of our teams are just shitting the bed end game. Very frustrating. I'll bring Dujunnea in now. Dujunnea, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How about yourself?
I'm happy with the Capitals, and I'm happy I got to talk about something good for the first hour. The second hour is going to definitely be a little bit more rough. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what this season is at this point, right? So I just don't, I think this next game here, I'm not getting ahead of ourselves. We'll talk about it more, but it's going to be a huge game because you win it and then you maybe make a chance to try to go for the playoffs. You lose it, I think you should just tank the shit out of the season in some ways because you want these picks to hit, right? And them to be good. Yeah. And I don't know, or fire the coach and see what you got with EB as a head coach, or I don't know, use this opportunity for something else because these are winnable games, and this is the third or fourth time we've sat here in a game that we should have won and we have a loss, and it's just extremely frustrating, and you could see it happening and unfolding. I'm in the group chat talking a lot of shit on this team, and Carol's like, hold your horses, they still, and I love his eternal optimism, but I just everything falling apart for what it was, and it all kind of started with this questionable call, and the people are talking about, oh, he hit it, New York overruled them, so that must be the right call because New York's got all the angles and they've got all the information or whatever. I don't think New York's infallible in this case.
No, New York is full of dog. You insert the word.
Yeah, because it's like, yes, they have all the angles, but they're slowing it down to make it look like he's targeting him, but he's just trying to shoulder him down.
Look,
here's the thing, Robbie. The penalty was correct. It was the correct penalty. The ejection was bullshit. The ejection was bullshit.
And
the penalty was correct, but the ejection was bullshit.
And I'll tell you, I watched the 1:00 games, and I believe it was the Houston game, Houston-Cincinnati, but there was a straight up dude launched himself on the sideline using the crown of his helmet and hit the guy, hit helmet to helmet, and it was just a penalty, no ejection. And I always thought that there was at least one, and then there was an ejection if you were to be caught doing it twice.
They did change that rule.
It's Washington though, and to be honest with you, I felt like the helmet to helmet was incidental, but we all know how this whole thing works. Soon as 2 helmets touch, they're gonna call it. He led with the shoulder. He did hit with the shoulder, but their heads collided. That's something you can't avoid. Was he launching himself head first? Absolutely not. The penalty was right because that's how they call it. But at the end of the day, the ejection was absolute garbage. And New York is trash. And I make sure that they know that they're trash because the whole entire NFL, as far as the officiating goes, is absolute garbage.
It's been so bad. And it's not to say that it's always against us. I mean, there's some bad calls the other way. I mean, there was a false start that was called where we completely instigated that. And and then they had to punt because of it. It went from 4th and 1 to 4th and 6, and it gave us an opportunity late game. So I'm not saying, I do think that there is extra ones called against us, no doubt. But it's just bad officiating across the boards. And I talk to NFL fans everywhere, all the time, on Twitch, a lot, in different rooms. A lot of people private messaging me, even people on, Threads and other stuff are starting to message me and saying, what's with the officiating this year? It's gotten significantly worse.
Well, the problem is that so all the veterans, especially around the COVID time, all the veterans left. So now you're left with inexperienced young refs involved in the game. Now, that's no excuse. And I've heard talking heads and former general managers who are talking heads on, Sirius Radio, football, 88 channel, talk about and make excuses for these refs. But at the end of the day, the basic stuff you should know. I mean, that's referee 101. And where things get kind of muddied is that there's rules that were already in place. It's kind of like the illegal contact thing. That's pass interference, man. Like, that was pass interference in the day. So what do we got to do? You know what I mean? All these other compounding rules for rules that were already in place that just needed to be clarified. But, it's the NFL run by Roger Goodell, and this is what we got. So, we've been talking about this since the mid 2000s about this. I think 2016, I wrote the first article about how terrible things were going, and it's been downhill ever since.
It's just so crazy. All right, let's talk about the game itself a little bit. I mean, I thought that it started off well. We missed an extra point, which ultimately could have potentially hurt us. There's some time management at the end of the game, although I'm of the belief with so few timeouts, you just get the score when you get it. I know people are like, you want to score with just so little time left and whatever, and we're not going to go for 2 anyway. So then you're playing for overtime then? Like, I don't, I, on the other hand, at the very end of the game when we were, when we tied it, I said go for a 2 then, because then at least you win or lose, but I don't know. It's just, they played well, but you kind of kept them in it the whole game. Seattle was just right there, and you just kind of felt like whoever got the ball last would have an opportunity to win this game. How did you see some of this, Dujunnea?
I thought the game plan by Eric was great. Sure, you don't like 14 rushes for 68 yards. But with that said, especially they were gaining 4.9 yards per carry. So there was times, especially at that point, where they kind of started feeding B-Rob, and he was just breaking off run after run after run. And then they got to a point where they kind of brought in Gibson for a little bit. I thought they should have just kept going with it. They were really generating holes, and both guys are running pretty aggressive. But at the same time, they did utilize some things with the screen game, the kind of screen, but he leaks out, goes up the sideline after Howell, gets out of the pocket and makes some plays that would help. That was a touchdown for B-Rob there, and another big play later on. I thought EB called a pretty good game, and he kind of called what the defense was giving, and they took advantage of that. Where I have a problem, and I've been having a problem all year long, is that at times the defense did a great job, and I'm not blaming the players, but the scheme at times, especially down the stretch there at the end, where very little time on the clock. Just do what you got to do what's been working, and get them out of here, and let's get into overtime. But he wants to call zones with linebackers that don't play well in coverage. I mean, Mayo is a freaking disaster in coverage, but yet you keep putting them out there like that. And those zones, Gino did an excellent job just getting it right over the linebacker each time. And, that's not players, that's scheme. They're doing what they're being asked to do. Offense is taking advantage of it. And, it's not like you're playing some rookie quarterback. I mean, Gino's been balling out here for a while now. So, another thing that's on Jack Del Rio. And you can, people make 1,001 excuses, but at the end of the game, in that moment, and in several moments during that game, I questioned some of the scheme calls when you were doing so well man to man. You were doing well being able to blitz, doing different things like that. Then you go to this zone and put your linebackers in space against guys like Tyler Lockett and others. They're going to get those passes. That's a first down every time. So we've seen it several times this year.
Why do teams go into this prevent defense when it just clearly doesn't work? Like, I just don't.
It wasn't that, like, what they did wasn't prevent, but they went to a zone on the back end. So everybody was playing spaces.
Away from man to man when you know that the only thing that beats
it's Jack Del Rio. I mean, we've been asked this question since week 1. This clown been garbage for 10 weeks.
It sucks because I think the head coach has got to go because it's his guy. He's not willing to fire him.
Oh,
so
no,
he's got to go too, right?
No, he's gonna ride this one all the way till the end because Ron don't have no cojones.
Yeah,
None.
It's just interesting to me that they are so intertwined. You would think that to save his own ass, that Ron would.
Ron has never saved his own ass.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be honest with you. He's never done that, and that's why he got sent up out of here in Carolina.
Yeah, it's true. It's just interesting. He's a good leader of men. People seem to respect the guy, right? But he doesn't seem to get them over the hump, right? They respect him, but they're not playing to that next level that they should be, right?
Yep.
I don't know what that means, but it's always about respecting your coach. It's about getting the most out of your players and putting them in the right positions to succeed. And it's just, we get close, but it's just, we seem to fall apart at the end, or we're not able to put, a full game plan together all the way through, or other teams make adjustments. And I think that for this game, I think that we were playing well, and then they read some of the stuff that we were doing with our running backs, and then they shut it down. And then it's a chess game. We didn't make that next move. We didn't.
I thought they did, though. I thought they did. They finally found it because both teams were struggling offensively at some point. Yeah. And they found it, was able to get back in it. And every time when we get in these moments where they've done their job, they've done what they've been asked to do, and it goes back on the defense's back, it fails every time. When they put it back in the defense's hand to get a stop, at the end of the game, we can take this to overtime and let's see where the chips fall. It never happens. They always get got at the end of games every time when they need them to stand up the most. And like I said, I don't blame that on players. I blame that on scheme. It happens every time. It's sad, though. It really is, because overall, the defense did play pretty well the entire game with moments that we've seen before. But again, if you look at those moments, they were playing zone in those moments. That's what this team doesn't do well on the backside, because you don't have the horses at the linebacker position to play that. If you want to do stuff like that, then you need to be in a 3-3-5 defense.
Yeah. It's so frustrating. It's just, I feel like the Wizards and the Commanders are like the same team. Like, they have these spurts in these games where they just bring you in, give you that hope, and then they just rip it right out of your heart. It's just hard. It's hard.
Sadly, I never felt like that. I never felt like the game was secure. And I never felt like
I never did
had an opportunity to. I never felt like they had an opportunity to win. It was always this cloud of lingering. It's just a matter of time before it's an L. And unfortunately, it was an L right at the game, and that just rips your heart out. And I know the fans had to have been gutted for that. I mean, you get that nice drive, they go down there, they tie it up, and all you need to do is just slow them down, run this clock out, and let's get to overtime. The offense does its job, and the defense goes out and pisses down its leg.
Yeah, Champ, I want to get some of your thoughts on this game as a fan that got pissed.
Right. So Brian Robinson Jr. had 157 yards from scrimmage today on that game. There's a problem, though. 119 of those yards were receiving. And he plays what position, folks? say it with me now, running
Running
back.
back.
And he only had 38 yards rushing, but he had 119 yards receiving, which led all receivers. And he also had 6 catches, which led all receivers. Him and Antonio Gibson combined for 11 catches for 161 yards, which was combined more than the actual people who get paid to play wide receiver. Tell me what's wrong with that picture. I can tell you what's wrong with that picture. You're pass heavy, and you're making yourself predictable as heck on offense when you're pass heavy. Now, Sam Howell's doing great. Don't get me wrong, he's doing great. He didn't get sacked as much as he has the first few games of the season. He got sacked a couple of times, yeah, whatever. But he's playing well. He has 65, almost 66% completion percentage, 29 of 44, 312 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no turnovers. That you can't ask for anything better than that. No turnovers, a 116.1 quarterback rating. So he played well. He completed passes to 9 different receivers, and I mean he did. The offense did everything they could to win this football game. But I think the problem was as the game progressed, there were some drives where Washington went 3-and-out, 3 straight drives. And when you go 3-and-out, 3 straight drives, your defense doesn't have a lot of time to get a blow on the sidelines and get themselves ready for the next series, and then they get exposed.
I'm sorry, Champ. That's an excuse. I'll point to the New York Jets for that thing. Their defense has to be out there a lot, and they don't allow the points that this defense does.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, I will retract that previous statement and say this. Okay, offensively, yeah, they look fairly well, but they're inconsistent, in my opinion. Because again, you had 3 straight drives towards the end of the half where it was 3-and-outs, and if you're not staying on the field, then you're not producing. The late game, Sam Howell put together a really good drive in that late game to tie the score. That was a great drive that he put together. And it's funny because it's almost like it's booking really good drives. That first drive that went 1 minute 34 seconds with that big B-Rob touchdown, and then that touchdown drive to tie the score up. But then they turned around and DK Metcalf killed them. I mean, absolutely killed them to lead to that game-winning field goal for Seattle to give them the victory. Just a heartbreaking loss because, as was mentioned earlier, they let Seattle hang around, and you let a team like Seattle hang around, and they're going to find a way to win. You got to find a way to get miles ahead of them and keep them back. Otherwise, something like what happened on Sunday happens, where they win it in the last second, and you're going back cross country. They're trying to figure out what the hell went wrong, and I think that's the question that needs to be asked: what the hell went wrong?
You know what? They were 7 of 15 on third down offensively, and the defense was 4 of 14 for Seattle. So they only allowed 4 of those 14 third down conversions. It was the success on first and second downs at the most critical moments. Both teams had the ball for almost 30 minutes. So it comes down to defense, period, at critical moments. Allowing explosive plays, you give up points. But those explosive plays come from playing zone, which this team does not do well.
Yeah, for sure. Real quickly, I do want to talk about Sam Howell, and so this is from NFL Rookie Watch, and I thought it was really interesting. So Sam Howell may have lost today, but he has officially established himself as the Commanders' franchise quarterback. They go on to say that now leads the entire NFL in passing yards with 2,785, leading the entire NFL in passing completions with 264, and tied for third in the entire league in passing touchdowns at 17. And you already talked about his stats, and that was against a pretty elite Seahawks defense. And I was just really impressed with his progression over this year. I think that people Yeah, he's definitely not to blame. And I'm excited because I didn't expect a Tar Heel to ever lead the Commanders. As somebody, I grew up a Tar Heel fan, but, on the basketball side, but their football team was almost always a joke historically. And so to see that and to get him in 5th round, a Tar Heel, I was like, that's an interesting play. But to see it pan out and work so far, he's really progressing at the way that you'd like to see. And that's exciting because it's something that we can build around. And so that goes to my next, part of the thing is we've got a big game against the Giants who just keep on getting blown out by, Dallas, and Dallas keeps on declaring themselves Super Bowl champs for crushing the Giants every week. But how do we get to crush a team like the Giants? Like, I think that I don't think we're as good as Dallas is, but I definitely think we are capable of putting together a full game and crushing a team like the Giants who don't have a lot to play for at this point. But Dujunnea, how do we put together a game plan in which it's not a close, game where we're keeping them in it the whole time and we actually win wire to wire?
It will come from by not doing what I want to do as an offensive coordinator, but looking at the tape and exploiting what they don't do well. Because you have the horses, and 14 is your guy. I don't care what any of the fans say. Some of these anyway, 14 is the guy, and I believe he's the franchise quarterback. But you got to come in as an offensive coordinator and take advantage of things that they don't do well. And there's a lot of things they don't do well, but don't play into the hand of their front 7, or I will say at least they got 6 guys up front that can be disruptive. And those guys that like to rush up the field, just like Seattle's defense, you got to do those same things. Let them jokers blow by and you hit them where it hurts. Eventually, they'll stop running up the field and they'll start thinking about it a little more. And that's when your run game can be effective. Defensively, it's simple. Stop being an idiot and use your players the way that they're supposed to be used and what they're in the ways that they're good at, which it seems like that numbskull doesn't understand. Which tells me, again, like I've said before, the game is either passed him by or he's just stubborn. And stubbornness gets you fired. But you're playing guys in ways that does not make them look good, and asking them to do things that they do not do well. We've seen it on tape repeatedly. So that's the thing you have to do. And as long as you're going to keep putting your guys out there, they're athletes, regardless of their record. There's athletes on that other side too, and you don't need great athletes to beat a defense. But if you take advantage of the stuff that you're going to put out, stuff that you don't do well, they're going to find ways to take advantage of it. And when they do, they hit you with big plays and they find their way in the end zone. So that it's simple, but we've got people who get paid millions that think they know more than we do. And yet what they've done hasn't worked, period. And they had several number ones on this defense and it didn't work. So that's the thing. Look at Dallas. What did they do? They took advantage of things they didn't do well. And then they took away the things that they do well. And it ain't that much over there in New York. So when the coaches start figuring that out, then maybe we'll see something. And you got to have a coach that's got to have a little bit of fire and a little bit, he got to have a little bit of a harvesting your nuts type deal to get guys fired up and can't come out flat. But you know what? This team often comes out looking like its coach as he stands on the sideline. Flat.
Yeah. I agree with that assessment. It's just interesting because I feel like it doesn't matter the coach. I feel like this franchise, I just feel like I see the same story over and over again. We see a lot of, things with the Jay Gruden area pop up again now. He's gone. We have a different owner now. What does it take to get us out of this funk? And I just don't know.
Time.
Yeah.
Time. Because see, they just got here. So what they did and what they decided to do was correct. I called that well before ownership was deemed to be new, that you don't touch what you have. Now they want to ride this thing out. That's fine. I don't mind that at all, because at the end of the day, they, what possibly you're going to gain from now getting rid of
Why not
Dak?
get rid? I mean, why not get rid of them and see if you can make a run to the playoffs? Or why not see what you have in EB as a head coach versus offensive coordinator to see if you want to go that direction?
But you know what? You know what makes it make trying to make a run to the playoffs, like in the first year when everybody was talking about, oh, well, he has to win, and Ron Rivera, he wants to win, and when he won that division, what did they end up getting? The hardest schedule for a team that wasn't ready for that type of schedule. So they had no business trying to make the playoffs. Should have left it alone and worked with what you had and built what you had.
That's
now,
fair. But why not still see what EB can do as a head coach?
I don't mind that, but that should have been done a couple weeks ago, in my opinion. Doing that now is too little, too late.
Well,
you got to pull those triggers earlier.
Or maybe the different way of looking at it is you keep this for the next couple of games, but then the bye week comes there. You've got a break, and that's a regime change time, and see what he's got for the remainder 4 games or whatever it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Week 14, though. I mean,
you
might as well ride that joker on out.
I guess it's just funny because I think of like in college, Texas A&M just fired a guy that had 9-10 years left on his contract, like in Jimbo Fisher, and had and it was just like lame duck, but they just let him go. Like they were like, instead, just like you don't have to coach anymore.
Well, look at LA, right? So they fired a coach that they should have never hired to begin with. He had no business getting another job. But nothing against Antonio Pierce, but what did we see the other day? Yeah. I mean, it's ugly. It's ugly win after ugly win. They don't look any better on offense. So, yeah, sure. You're going to have, regardless of whether EB's the coach or not, your offense is going to be just fine. It's going to have some of the same issues just because of just some of these guys on the offensive line, they're not consistent with their play. And that's just who they are. No biggie. And sometimes the play calling hurts their lack of, what they don't do well. So, but that's going to stay the same. But as long as, you're going to let Ron Rivera now coach the defense, which he should have done a while ago, but my man looks ho-hum, like he's smoked a doobie and is in chill mode most of the time standing on the sideline. Like, that's the same guy that ran this team out here during the Bears looking that same way, and the team played the same way. I just think it's time. And when they change things up, they'll bring in legitimate GMs. I hope they get somebody that's from the Eagles staff. They've put together what they've done. They've put together something, because I'm not in the business of talking about rebuilding. I don't want to hear no rebuild, nothing. It's reload and get it together. There's teams that have turned it around in a year. There's no excuse. So
the NFL is different than a lot of other leagues, where some leagues you do need to rebuild over time, and
not in this league.
Yeah, not in this league.
We've seen it too many times where they reload and teams come back. So I think the ownership is there. I know this ownership does want to win. And if you look at what Josh Harris has done in the NBA, I mean, he just, they did the same thing here in Washington, sent 2 guys out of here for picks. They sent James Harden out of here too. So I really think that whatever it is, Ron Rivera is Ron Rivera. And unfortunately, if you look back in Carolina, we're seeing some of the same stuff that's been going on here. It's because Ron thinks that he should be the only voice in the room, and yet his voice is very small. And the team comes out and plays just like his voice, small.
Yeah. So just a quick scoring update in the Monday Night Football game. It's actually tied 15-15. The Bills were able to tie it up. They kicked it off to the Broncos. The Broncos actually had a good return there, had some good plays, but then they stalled around the middle of the field and have punted it back to Buffalo now. Buffalo's kind of feeling themselves a little bit more at this point, and showing up to be the team that I expected them to be at the beginning, but we hadn't seen up until this point. Dujunnea, it was exciting to see that you had Seawall on your show this week, and you've been having a lot of great guests. Let people know about what you and her talked about, and also let our listeners know about what you got on the upcoming week.
Man, it was a great chat, and it's basically some of the things that we talked about. This team had to come out and really just play better ball and be more sound. But I listened to her today. It same thing. Some of it's time management. There's some management issues. There's play calling issues. And, unfortunately, this is where we're at now. It's up to the players to obviously execute better. But like I said, it's tough, man, when you got asking players to do stuff that that's not what they do well. So, in this particular podcast, we're going to talk about the NHRA finals. It was a heck of a finals, man. I don't care if you're not a drag racing fan, if you were able to catch that, you were a fan. It went right down to the wire in Top Fuel. So we're gonna cap off the season with that. We're gonna talk a little NFL. I'm gonna have on ESPN's Titans insider Teron Davenport, and our Commander's guest is up in the air right now. So we will see. I've just been pretty busy, so a lot of things going on. Just haven't been able to line everybody up, but I got that's the last one I have to line up.
That sounds good. Sounds good. Well, we appreciate your insight as always. It's always interesting to hear it from an outsider's perspective, not just a fan where I believe what I see, but it's hard because people are like, you're a fan, you're bullshitting it, like you're gonna just be a homer all the time, which is not wrong, but at the same time, it's good to hear that some of the things that I think that I'm seeing, you see as well. So
absolutely.
I appreciate that and your time as always, and we'll have you back on next week.
For sure, man. Thank you.
Have a good one. All right. Yeah, we'll go check out the Not Bland show. I'm going to do the command for Dujunnea here. It's great. You can always click on the podcast partners button, Sports on the Hill podcast, and sportsothp.com. And you can check out all of the Not Bland show. He's also live on Twitch now, which is great if you want to follow him over there. In addition to that, I do want to give a couple of scoring updates. The Kraken has scored. They now lead the Avalanche 2-0. Milwaukee Bucks defeat Chicago Bulls 118-109. It's the start of the third period with the Oilers are tied with the Islanders 1-1. And again, we talked about it before. This game is still tied, but the Buffalo is looking a lot better. I'm going to turn on a second camera. Make sure that everything is muted on here. There you go. Cool. Oops. Oh, did I click it again?
Yeah.
There you go.
Back on.
There you go. Nice. All right. So there we go. You can see Tim is here live in the man cave. It's a little blurry.
A little smudged.
Smudged up. There we go.
That's better.
It's a lot better. All right.
The Giants is a must-win game. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think the Giants is a must-win game. I do want to get Champ, give me your thoughts on that one, and then we're going to talk about the Ravens, and then we'll get into some unfortunate NBA talk.
We have to.
I know. I might actually make it very short tonight because it's a lot of the same story over and over again. But we will talk about the Wizards. I don't know if it's going to be a full 20-minute breakdown of every score. A lot of collapses. So, all right, but Champ, talk about your fourth quarter collapse, and then I'll let Tim talk about his.
I mean, no, the talk is about the Giants game.
Oh, yeah.
It's a must-win game for this team, especially because this upcoming week is a short week for this team because it's back-to-back division games. You have the Giants at home. You couldn't beat them week 7, and they're coming off of once again getting their butts handed to them by the Dallas Cowboys. And that's the same Dallas Cowboys team we have to see literally a couple days later on Thanksgiving. So right now, this Washington Commanders team is in a position where they need to either show up, bounce back, or just fall back, period. And it starts with the Giants. The Giants don't have Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones' season's done. They have, what's his name, DeVito? They need to Jack Del Rio has a very inexperienced quarterback to deal with. He needs to have that line pin their ears back and come after him Don't hold back. Go after him. Trust your DBs and just let chaos happen where it may. Because your offense needs to start to gain their identity a little bit. But that defense needs to pin their ears back and just cause chaos. Period. Point blank. Stop this zone BS. Play like just chaos. That's what I want from the defense. Chaos. Beat the Giants, and then maybe we can think about how this season can go. But if you lose to the Giants, this season is essentially circling the drain, as they would say, like New York, New NYPD term. They will be circling the drain at this point if they lose to the Giants.
Yeah. And then what at that point, I mean, I just don't even know what you do with the rest of your season. It's so frustrating because they win this game against Seattle, and then they can, pole vault into a win against, New York, maybe gain some momentum and go into then Dallas, right? If that had happened differently, what I foresaw where it was 500 team coming out of Seattle and then them going on a win streak is possible. But now you're like clinging on to see if you can defeat the Giants, and then if you do, then maybe you can push that into a win against Dallas, but Dallas is gonna like laugh that off and be like, well, you didn't beat them by like 40. And it's just, I don't know. It's just been such a frustrating season, so far, because they give us a lot of these games, 3 or 4 games now, we've had an opportunity to win them. And if we had, we're talking about a very different season here. And it's just, but I think I agree with what Dujunnea was saying, is like, why go for that playoff just to lose, just to get a better,
Next year's.
get a better schedule for next year. But it's hard. I'll give Arun one quick thought since we're still talking about the Commanders, and then we'll switch over to the Ravens game, which I watched that entire game, which was very frustrating. But Arun, what are some of your thoughts about this past game, real quick, and then going into the Giants game?
Howell looked really good down the stretch of that game, even though clock management was really terrible. I don't know. It's been every year. It feels like clock management is terrible, and to close out the game, it felt like the play calling on the defense is just really bad. Maybe it had to do with them not being able to generate a pass rush, but just sending out an all-out blitz in those kinds of situations was deflating and ended up costing them the game. And I don't know, maybe they just don't have the defensive personnel, but I think Jack Del Rio they have to really think about moving on from him. But if Ron Rivera is not going to get rid of him, he might cost himself his own job.
I think they're both gone, but just like, why not already? Like, what are we waiting for? Have we not seen enough? I just don't. We just don't have anyone on our staff that can even take over for him. Like, I don't know. It's very frustrating to me. It's like,
You always have somebody.
there's got to be somebody, right? Like, yeah.
6 games.
Eric Bieniemy would probably be willing to pick the job.
He could do it.
Yeah, or just even let the freaking head coach, who used to be a defensive coach himself, just do it. Like,
Yeah.
But I think DJ said it earlier, that at this point it's kind of a little too late to make that kind of coaching change. You're about to go into week 11. You still have your bye week with week 14, and you still have 1, 2, 3 division games, 1 more against the Giants and 2 against the Cowboys, plus the 49ers, plus the Rams. You still have winnable games against the Dolphins and the Jets. I think that this ownership team is trying to see what if Ron Rivera still has the pulse of this team, and if they can't beat the Jets, then I think at that point you got
Jets have a good defense. I think we're gonna.
And the Jets, they just lost to the new head coach of Antonio Pierce and the Jets and Giants. So that's just the counterpoint that it's never. Sometimes it's not too. Sometimes if you have fired the head coach, you get a couple good wins. I don't know if that's even just by the players try harder, but I don't know. Maybe they want a better draft pick with all the trades they made. Who knows what they're trying to do?
I'm just so curious about how EB would do as a head coach. You have an opportunity here to see that before you buy it, as because everyone's just appointing him the next head coach, right? Because to some extent he deserves it based on his past, what he's done. And I think he's been overlooked a lot. But at the same time, why not take a look? Like, it's free. It's a free look. You don't have to pay him more as an interim. Like, I don't know. I just feel like
They're paying Ron Rivera anyway. It's like a fixed. Yeah, I don't know.
that's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah,
free. It's a
Rivera's
free.
money's
All the money's been spent.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost you any more. Like, why not? Like, take a look.
Maybe they'd have to change the sign of the office. That's a little bit more money. I don't know. They're cool with that. They need to. They at least need to fire Del Rio. That's probably the first thing that's going to happen. But if Ron Rivera is refusing to budge on that, then
is it bad that I kind of want us to lose to the Giants because I think it would speed this up? Like, I just.
Sure, you're not the only fan.
Yeah, it's just
it'll be tough, but it's possible.
Although I don't know if I want necessarily a new coach going into the Cowboys game on a small week.
It'll be like that replacement story or the movie. So maybe they'll make a movie out of it.
That would be. It is a way to, like. You were just talking about how sometimes there's a catalyst to get a win or two, right? Like, fire them right in between, have no time to adjust to a new coach, and then like. No, I think we would just get
that in European soccer all the time. They have like 3-4 coaches a season.
Yeah, but I think we just get slaughtered on Thanksgiving regardless, and then it just makes the new coach look bad. I just don't. I don't know if we're gonna be like. I just don't think we're even in the same.
Yeah, the Cowboys will win that game and lose the next 3 games probably. That's like written.
That's probably true.
Style.
Yeah. I do want to really quickly talk to Tim about this Ravens game, and I'm sorry, but like I watched it and I was like,
relive this trauma again.
But like they were up 14-0, and they looked so good so early. Immediately the pick, the touchdown, then the offense clicked, got their touchdown, and it just seems slowly like they just chipped away at it. They were never out of it, and I thought that they had some pretty bad plays for the Ravens is down the stretch. I was kind of surprised with the turnovers, the play calls in general. Like I just felt like some risky, plays that were unnecessary, and it was very frustrating because it reminded me a lot of the Commanders in the sense that they just couldn't put the foot on the throat early and let a team hang around enough and lost on a last-second field goal. It seems like almost like both games were very similar in my mind.
Yeah. Well, there was a record yesterday, 5 games ended on a field goal. So there's so much parity in the NFL, especially yesterday with all the close games. Like you were talking about, the Commanders and a lot of teams are so close to being 6-3 rather than like 3-6, stuff like that. With the NFL, it's always a couple plays here or there. I think with the Ravens too, you could see it really with the Bengals game. I think they saved a little bit of energy of the second half because they know they have the short week, and they know they're playing against the Bengals, who I think most people assume is really the biggest threat in the division. And you could see with the Bengals losing too, I just think both teams are kind of looking forward to Thursday night. And you can't beat a team like the Browns if you're not all in because they're so physical. And they play really good defense. I think it was some luck too. The bad bounces, like the pick 6 that Lamar threw was just a deflection. And Deshaun Watson fumbled on the last possession, but the Browns lineman fell on it. So, and most of those plays with more defenders around the ball, like the Ravens would get the bounce. So it's bad luck too. But the AFC North is just way too good. You can't take a half off against any of the teams. You'll lose. So it was a terrible loss, but.
It was a good game, but it's a terrible loss.
It's just
frustrating. That
typical NFL game.
Yeah, I have to admit, I've now watched a lot of football this year, and I definitely think that your division is the hardest. You can just look at the records, but I mean, but even the eye test, like to see how they play against other divisions. That's the real,
the AFC
kicker.
Is a lot better in general.
They basically beat everybody else that's out of their division, and then they just beat each other up. I mean, the Steelers have looked a lot better than I expected. Actually, at this point.
The record.
Yeah.
On the field, but they win.
But they win
Yeah.
though, and I mean, it's
Every
that
team.
Browns team is gutsy, like they're hard
Yeah.
fought and they don't give up, and they have a real identity now as this like really smash mouth team, and it's just all the defenses are really good across
the whole division.
Yeah,
very physical. And
I've watched this game.
Yeah,
I actually watched this game in my father's hospital room, and when I left from his hospital room, I was for sure that the Ravens had that one won. Like I was for sure. I was like, there's no doubt about it. I don't even have to worry about it. Then when I heard they lost, I said, wait, what happened? What happened? I will say this. Odell Beckham, that slant that went 40 yards for a touchdown, he looked like the OBJ of old on that play. Like he ran the route perfectly. It was a pretty ball from Lamar Jackson, and it was all OBJ from there. I was so happy to see him show flashes of his time in New York and what he's capable of as a receiver. I was really, really buzzing about that one. That was a really, really beautiful play right there from Odell Beckham. But Tim, I feel your heartbreak. Trust me.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah, it was rough. And so they play on Thursday against Cincinnati.
At home also.
Oh yeah,
but tough game.
Yeah, that'll be a really tough matchup.
Higgins is probably out, so that'll help. But they're still a good team. And I think, like I said, I think it was the same situation. I think they were looking ahead to this game, and they let Houston get away with a win. Also at home. So it's going to be a physical game, even though it's Thursday night. I really think it's going to be one of the better Thursday night games just because it's so important and both teams are good. So unlike, especially last week, Thursday night was terrible, but this one should be a good one.
I can't believe this is the last Thursday night game before the Thanksgiving game. Thanksgiving,
so I guess they stop after that, right? Or do they do it?
No, I think I think they do it the whole year now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think every team has to play a Thursday night game, and they give them one of the worst game. So a couple teams get obviously 2 Thursday night games.
It was a great Thursday night game, 16-13, Bears Panthers. Everyone was watching that.
I like how even some of the preview shows for that game, they were like, "You shouldn't watch this game."
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Why bother?
Yeah. So I do want to give a quick scoring update. It's still the same score. It's 15-15 with 11:47 left in this fourth quarter with a false start. So that'll set them, meaning the Broncos back a little bit. But it's been a close game here on a Monday Night Football game. It's been a pretty good game.
A lot of turnovers.
Yeah,
close game.
Yeah,
I think the Bills have turned it over like 5 times. But...
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, but it's been an interesting matchup for sure. So I do want to give a quick little shout out because I usually do it during the Hurt segment, but he wasn't on today. Just a fantasy update in our Pick'em League. It's been pretty close. Oops, hold on.
My week was rough.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I saw that. That was probably your worst week of the year. But
rub it in.
But I'm back, I guess, tied with my father-in-law Tommy. We both
still in first.
Yeah, we both had 100-point weeks, and so did Dujunnea. So shout out to him for having a good week as well. I'm just seeing real quickly. Tommy took the Bills in this one. I'm pretty sure I took the Bills as well. I mean, I'm kind of surprised this game is as close as it is. Yeah, it's been an interesting matchup. Yeah, we both did. But I will show the leaderboard real quickly here. Let me see if I can get this right. Bless you. All right. So it goes here. Yep. So there it is. Sorry. There it is. So you can see that Tommy is 1. I am tied. Dujunnea is right there. Sith is right there as well. Hurt, Champ, and then Arun. So we're all right up there in the top 7. So it's been an exciting couple of weeks, and it only is about 7 wins between Arun and myself right now in that top 7. So
I forgot to change one of the games. I was checking. I was picked the Raiders on my blog, but I picked the Jets and the Pick'em, so my bad.
Oh, you're fine. I mean, there is no rule that what you put out there on your blog is what you're going to do, because then people essentially like copy that for
Yeah,
so
copycats.
exactly. I'm definitely always looking at Arun's blog to make all my
That's
picks.
your intel.
But no, it's been a fun.
I don't trust Arun. A man who's so obsessed with RG3, I don't trust him. All right, never mind.
So, but I am excited that Arun, Tim, and I are all gonna go to the hockey game this week. So that'll be
I'm
fun.
so sad I'm gonna miss that.
Yeah, but maybe we'll do another one in the spring. We're
next
we're
time.
talking about Anna wanting to go to a game. She wants to do one that's a little bit nicer tickets. We got literally like the third to last row, just get the cheapest tickets in the thing. But
Little known fact about Champ, I've attended every DC major sports team except the Capitals.
yeah, we got to
okay.
change that.
Yeah,
So
no
whether or
shit.
not we do a big group or just we go together, we'll definitely have to find a way to get you to a Caps game, especially because tickets are still available. So if anyone does want to join us in our row, there are still the whole rest of the row is still open, so they can join us and let us know. So I really don't want to talk about these Wizards. I guess we have to though.
Terrible sports.
It's still yeah, exactly. Well, I took it off the scorebook at least, but I will turn it on now just so I can see this terribleness. But I will change these graphics here. And this will be our cut point for the Wizards talk.